We usually take just a few minutes to answer a question, what is Marketplace Connections? And I've been trying to answer that question, but I think we have somebody that will do a much better job than myself. Marketplace Connections focuses on 3 different connections: business connections, relationships, and spiritual connections. We try to bring all 3 of those together. Justin Valenti has been coming for many months. He's had some interesting things that have taken place. Justin is a personal trainer for Paul Reed, and I wanted Paul to be here this morning so you could see what Paul looks like. That's largely due to Justin beating on his body, right, Justin?
And how he moves.
And how he moves, yeah.
Can he make me as tall as Paul?
We could stretch you, yeah. We could stretch you.
A little bit about me. I am a personal trainer in Bellevue. I went to Bastyr University. It's a naturopathic school. Trained athletes to start out with, realized they were just a pain in the butt and didn't want to deal with them. So now I work with the general public. And Paul was one of them. I'm a father of 4. I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 6-month-old. That's a whole nother story. My wife is a CPA, so as Jeff knows, it's a chaotic time of year. She has been coming to this, and now that can't happen this morning because she is off doing an audit somewhere. But my life is crazy. But I was missing certain aspects in my life, and Marketplace has brought that. Why am I here? Why am I at Marketplace? Who'd have thought? My alarm went off. That was pretty basic right there. My alarm went off, woke me up, got me here. I had one child next to me in a crib. We all got up. Nobody was sick. Life was good this morning. We've been trying to do this for, 4 months now? But I did make it in. And most importantly, John asked me. So why is that so important? This is a crucial group. It's become an aspect of my life that is important. And why does it matter? Well, Marketplace, it's not really what I thought it was. Paul invited me, didn't tell me the whole story, said it was successful business people in Bellevue, and that left the door kind of wide open. Because there are people in Bellevue that I really don't want to associate with. There is this group. Again, Marketplace has been it's a passionate group for me. It's been inspiring. It's a real group. Everyone, we talk to each other. There's no facade. And that's been hard to find for me in Bellevue. He invited me initially, and I liked it so much I invited my wife, which was a big aspect. Because again, we have a lot going on in our life. For us to do something together has been pretty important. What has this given me? Well, it's perspective. We started a whole nother group Wednesday mornings. We meet once every 3 weeks. Again, it's a busy schedule, so we're still trying to do that. And we've been reading books. Who'd have thought, again, reading a book, coming together in an early morning meeting for us. We've shared. With that, within this group, within our private meetings, there's been no judging, no pointing fingers, no flaws have been brought out. Just discussions. We've cherished the conversation that we've all had together. And again, that's hard to do. We miss that. We were talking about that at our table. We often get caught on our phones. We get stuck doing this and that. But we forget, really, that relationship is what's been imperative. And very, very rare. That perspective is what has led to wisdom. The time it takes to clarify. So we get together, we get that perspective, we go off on our own and we think about it. And what that has really done is it's really brought us all together. It's a process. I said it's not like racing a car, which is interesting because we were talking about that earlier. It's almost like creating a diamond. It's taken time. We've built this relationship. Something magnificent has come out of it. And I love that Pat's smiling back there because she's been part of our group too and an integral part. But we've created that diamond with us, which is not at all what I would have thought that Marketplace or some of these relationships would have gone. So I need to thank you, first and foremost. And very glad that I was finally able to get up here and do this for you. So enjoy.
There was Aaron Pratt. So we finally sat down, got talking, chatting, and I discovered that he's actually my twin brother. And we even dress the same. But, I mean, there is a long introduction to him. He is a family legacy advisor, specializing in family wealth preservation. And the way he does it is to blend that technical experience that he's got, that vast knowledge with something that I do, which is coaching and helping families to identify their goals and their vision for their future, and to work on that basis. So transitions, we're all in transitions. You guys are in transition, I'm in transition, we're all in transition. So let me not hold up anymore, and I will take the stage.
Thanks, Jerry.
And what I thought about was just this, and we've already heard it talked about already a little bit this morning. Life is a process of transitions. Transitions never stop. They're always going on, always. It's just a question of to what degree and what areas. Is it personal? Is it financial? Is it business? Is it spiritual? Wherever it is, life does not stand still. And so as we recognize that and the joy of the forward movement of life, particularly when we get into those challenging things that aren't real comfortable, what do we learn in those? And so I'm just gonna give you a little bit of my story this morning, okay? Because I think, and I encourage you to do this, which you already are, but outside of this room, just do your best to continue to share your story with other people, because all my learnings have come from other people sharing their story with me. And when they do that, and then when they're no longer here, because some have passed away, some of my mentors are no longer here, but the sharing of their story is in here and it's in here, and that never stops. So for me, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of background on some transitions that I've been through, some rough spots, and a little bit about our question this morning, what do you do when you're in those rough spots? And then give you some ideas and some thoughts, and maybe even some exercises that you can take home and use. And these are exercises that I've done. I've learned them from other people that are professionals in the business and just colleagues in general. So let me start with a little bit of my background. I turned 60 years old last October, and I've been in the city of Bellevue from day one. From day one. So other than off to college a little bit, but I've been living on the east side. I went to Ennetai grade school in 1958, and 59, and 60. So I've been around this place, and I can remember when it was strawberry fields a little bit, and I can remember when Bellevue Way was a two-lane road. And so it's fun to see what happens over a period of a few decades. My professional journey started around 1976, 1977, when I got out of college at this little school in Tacoma called the University of Puget Sound, and went on to be in the banking business for a number of years. The first 5 years or so, I was a bank regulator. I worked for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency as a national bank examiner, and I traveled around the Northwest and other parts of the country examining the national banks, and we actually shut down a couple of banks in Alaska and so forth, but it was a really good experience. So my first transition, and as I think about business transitions, I'm going to maybe categorize them, and there's no right or wrong to this, but it just came to me, ones that we maybe think we were in charge of, and ones that maybe we weren't. Okay, and in 1980, I switched jobs because I created the initiative, and I didn't see myself staying in that job as a career, and then moving to Minot, North Dakota, or Cody, Wyoming, or Billings, Montana, or someplace where I didn't really want to be. So in 1980, I found a job. I was in Portland, Oregon in the late 70s, and so around 1980, got back up here, was in the banking business for the entire decade of the 80s. There was another transition for me, and I'll say, was it purposeful or was it reactive? I think it was a little bit of each. In 1985, I was very happy with my banking job here in downtown Bellevue as a commercial lender for what was then First Interstate, which is now Wells Fargo. But back then it was First Interstate, and I got a call from a headhunter, and I said, no, I'm happy with what I'm doing. They keep going. I said, okay, I'll talk to you. And around mid-85, I went to work for another bank, and that was 1985 to late 1991. Well, 1991, for those of you who remember in the financial business, was the savings and loan crisis, fall of 1991. We had the entire year of 1991. And I worked for the second largest S&L in the state of Washington. It was called Pacific First Federal Savings and Loan. It was number 2 behind Washington Mutual. About $6 or $7 billion, which was big at that time. Doesn't exist anymore. Matter of fact, Washington Mutual doesn't exist anymore. But back then, those were the 2 big players, and I got a pink slip. So here's my first transition that I didn't feel like I was really in charge here. And that pink slip, I remember, November 5th, 1991. November 5th, 1991. And I was given 90 days, I was given a severance package, and I was given an opportunity at 37 years old to decide, do I want to stay in banking or do I want to do something else? And I thoughtfully thought to this, and it's part of our question today, what do we do within those pits? And for me, it started to really balloon part of who I am today, and that's my spiritual journey, because I started turning to Him on virtually everything. But back then, I was new in my faith. And I decided not to stay in the banking business. I decided to venture out into entrepreneurhood. So I really, for the last 23 years, since January of 1992, yeah, that's 23 years, I've been happily unemployed, or excuse me, self-employed. Okay. And all that is. And so I've been in the financial business, and as Jay alluded to it, this is not about my work, but it's really about the learnings along the way. We do work with people on estate planning and charitable giving and managing their financial affairs, but more so really how those issues are important in their life and their family and their value system and their dreams and their aspirations, because wealth is much more than what's on the balance sheet. Wealth is what's in here. Wealth is in relationships. Wealth is in taking care of yourself physically. It's in all these things, using this thing, reading good books. All that's part of wealth. And a financial balance sheet is just one little piece of that can be used to make good in all those other areas. I mean, this disease-free society, you got me going. I got some people I want to talk to you about it, because I think that's fantastic. So I'm in the big vision arena, talking with people about things that are so big they seem impossible, but nothing's impossible, is it? Nothing. So what I learned, again, as I transitioned in this early phase in 1992, it was scary. I didn't have a paycheck for a long time. But around our table, we talked about what was it for me that still is very important today, and that's the R word. R word is relationships. When you're in those places, in those transition phases, where do you turn to? Who do you turn to? And why? Okay? Because I've been taught a lot by other people that are a lot smarter than me. One of the gentlemen that was coaching me in 2002, 2003, he says, here's Alan right there, Alan Pratt right in the middle. And what is my life? What does it entail? What are the things when we're in that difficult circumstance? Who are the people, and who are the organizations, and who are the experts? Who are the friends? Who do we reach out to? And so, what's the ecosystem? And maybe it's your business. Maybe it's your health club. Maybe it's your church. Maybe it's your professional associations. Maybe it's just long-term friends from college. I mean, so these are the organizations and the people inside of these organizations that create what he called the Alan Pratt ecosystem. So who's in your ecosystem, and in all these different areas, organizations, people, and what are the values that they've stayed in place? Why is it that my fraternity brother in San Diego, California, who I've known for 43 years, I can call him up and it's like we've never been away from each other, ever. And when his young man, son at 21, committed suicide a few years ago, how we reach out in situations like that. I mean, that's the power of the relationships that stay strong when we're in these temporary areas of what we call a valley, or we call them a tough situation. So the transitions are the growth. Where have you grown? Have you grown when everything's going great? Or have you grown when things are not going so well? Okay? And how are you being observant? For me, these are just things that others have shared with me. Am I looking with tunnel vision, or am I looking with 360-degree vision? So if something's going on over here, I can be a part of that. Because in my world, God's working everywhere. He's over here, He's working everywhere. But if I've got my agenda, and my agenda seems to be so strong and so narrow, and all based on me, am I going to miss out? I'm going to miss out what could happen over here. So for me, the whole transition thing, it's continuous. It never stops. Okay, here I am, and I've been in the business world for about 35 years now. And how long will I stay at? Will I ever use the R word, retirement? I'm not sure that I ever will. I'm not sure I'll ever use the R word. Because we're transitioning from something to something else. Retirement means slow down, it means stop. I'm not thinking I'm going to slow down in anything. The activities of daily living might look different. But if we're going to get engaged in big vision ideas and wake up in the morning because I got things to do, I got things to do. I can't afford to sit back and relax. And that's why in my work, I have 9 clients in their 90s. 9 clients in their 90s. And they're pillars of health. Why? Because they've got things they got to do. And they can't check out. No, I got things I got to do. My oldest client lived to be 100 in a day. 100 in a day. And their life was just fabulously engaging. And the R word, I don't think was ever really used. So, as we get into these transitions that kind of get our gut all twisted up in knots for various reasons, think about the blessings of what you've developed in your life thus far. For me, when I went through this for the first time, I say it was 03, so I have to think about age now. I was 48, 49 years old when this told me through it. I said, my goodness, there's a lot of things that have happened in my 48 or 49 years that everybody in this room can look to and say, man alive, what am I down about? Look what I've got. And when we can turn to these people and these organizations, to him and other things that are going to be just absolutely wonderful, why should we be down at all? Okay, so I'm hoping that helps you. And for me, and for you, transitions aren't going to stop. Life doesn't stand still. Think about where your life is today in these 5 areas. Relationships, physical health, spiritual development, intellectual growth, and financial resources. All 5 of those areas. And give yourself a report card. I'm going to give you a little homework assignment here to take home with you to think about. And it's on the handout that I gave you. But if you think of those 5 areas and then go back 15 years, it's March of 2000 right now. March of 2000. Is your life exactly the same, all 5 of those areas it is right now? I don't think so. And how much, as you map out the changes of where your life was in those 5 areas in March of 2000, or where it is in March of 2015, and you see the differences, how many of those changes were intentional? How many of those changes were accidental? Okay? How many of those changes are going in the direction to make you feel good, or maybe going in the direction that you don't feel so good? Okay? But life does not stand still. It is always changing. And for us to be grateful for the changes that have come into our life, because how they can be a part of choices that we make. And one choice is to not make a decision. And that talks about this exercise called fear. Are people stuck in fear today? Yeah, they are. Many are. In my work, when I'm working with people about big ideas, and sometimes there's some big balance sheets to allocate to various things, fear can really slow down. It can stop people. I have a couple, I will just tell you right now, they live 5 doors down from Bill Gates on the water. $8 million home. They're in their early 80s. Net worth $75 million. And they are stuck in fear. They are stuck in fear. Fear. False exaggerations appearing real. False exaggerations appearing real. Okay, did I make that up? No, I heard it from somebody else, and I think it's got some validity to it. The key one being the first word, false. False. Most fear is created right here. It's created up here. Okay? And as we get into that tough situation where the stomach is rumbling and we find ourselves maybe going a little bit like this, the natural humanness in us will tend us to want to pull in. Stay on the couch, don't go outside. Versus go out to people. So when I was in that first transition period, I was literally unemployed. I was collecting an unemployment check in February of 1992 on unemployment. I left the house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't come back to 5. I didn't have a job. But I went out to be with all these people. And if I didn't have an appointment, I'd sit in Starbucks, and did I have a cell phone? I didn't have a cell phone then. No, so I had to find a place where maybe I could get a desk and a phone. Didn't have a laptop. Okay, but where could I be away? I mean, one of the things my father taught me is when you are productive in your family and you care about people and you are a provider, you get up in the morning, you get dressed, and you go to work. Well, I didn't have a job, but I got up, I got dressed, and I left to be out there. And eventually through these relationships did these folks care about me? Yeah, they did. You have people like this in your life that care about you? Yeah, you do. So anyway, I'm hoping some of this helps because I'm going to stay on track here and finish up with a 4-part exercise that might wrap all some of this together. Just some bullet points, notes that I have. I've talked about the ecosystem. I've talked about who could be out here, be thinking about it. Sharing of your story. I mean, I think that's fairly common to this group. But the more we have people that are willing to be vulnerable to share their story, and all parts of it, that's where we learn. Professionally, some of the clients that I've been blessed to be around, and some that have passed away because they were my clients 20 years ago, and they became my client at age 70 or 75, and they're gone now. But only with one exception, every time I've gone to a memorial service, it's been a celebration of life. It's been a joy. Think about that. Now, one was sad, but all the other ones, and I've got one tomorrow to go to. And it's a little bit sad because she only made it to about maybe late 70s, and there was some brain cancer took over, and she's gone. But the joy that I see her leave with her husband of age 80 and her son who's 55 is wonderful. Yeah, they're going to miss her, but she had an impact on her life just because of who she was. And we all can do that. We all can do that. So sharing of this story is so important. I try to do my best to share all of mine, and I can't share all of it right now, but I'm sure bits and pieces of it. But the more we learn from other people's stories, and the more that we can be in a place where we can share their stories with someone else, that's a wonderful thing. I was talking to someone here. It was Gary. We were talking about the fellowship. This is a group that's been meeting at the WAC for 80 years. It's a men-only group, and one of my clients 19 years ago, in 1996, invited me to come. At the time, he was probably about 80 years old. And I came. I didn't know what it was. And here I am. I've been going every Thursday pretty much for 19 years. But when he passed away, I'm going to guess about 8 years after that, he was in his late 80s. I got a call from him, and he was in his hospital bed, and he was a very successful business guy. Many of you in the room might know the name, but he said, Alan, and he knew that things were not good on the health side, but he was grounded in his faith. He was not worried about where he was going. He says, I just want to reach out to you and say thanks and tell you that I love you. This is from a client. An 88-year-old client, and I think he was gone in about 2 months. And he shared with me much of his story. So here I am now. That was about early double aughts. That was probably 2003, 2004. Here we are 12 years down the road, and I get to share his story regularly and go deep on it. So sharing of the story is so wonderful. Until we had paper and books and technology, that's the only way things get passed on, verbally. Importance of a values match. One of the things I look for that has been helpful for me, particularly in transitional phases, whether it was my layoff in 1992 or a subsequent transition in 1997, where I was in the business for about 5 years working with another man, 100% commission business, and things were going fine. But after 5 years into that business with him, and he owned the company, I didn't own any of it, he walked into my office, and it was August of 1997. And he says, Alan, you've been doing your work over here in the philanthropic space and with charitable giving and with estate planning, and he's over here working with business owners on transition and compensation and pension plans and golden parachutes and golden handcuffs and deferred comp and which is all good work. It's all good work. But you're over here in a whole other space where people are just giving it away. And he said, we're not crossing over anymore. I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing, and we're just roommates here in the office. He says, I think maybe it'd be a good time for you to leave. And you know what? He was absolutely right. His name is Michael, and I stood up and I hugged him and I said, Michael, you are absolutely right. You know what? I've been thinking about it myself. He was not walking spiritually the way that I was, okay? But I could tell that there was a spiritual influence on him making that comment that I absolutely agreed with. I was gone in 30 days. Incorporated in 30 days. New office space in 30 days. I mean, it was literally 5 weeks. 5 weeks up and running. Okay, so was that a transition time? Absolutely, it was a transition time, and I didn't know that was going to happen on August 5th of 1997, but it did. And so, as in life, it's not a question of what happens; it's how do you respond? How do you respond? How did I respond? I respond. I go, my goodness, he's so right. This is absolutely right. It's the right thing to do. Got really excited. Went home and I called my wife right then. I said, I got some pretty interesting news I'm going to share with you when I get home. And when I got home, I told her, and she was a little bit scared. I mean, the fear thing it kicks in a little bit. But as we moved out of that and we started thinking about this, okay, that was blah, blah, blah incorporated. What are we going to name the new company? What are we going to do? Okay, and so we rolled up our sleeves and got into all the exciting parts of what we could create, knowing that it is unlimited what we can do. So those were a couple of touch points of mine. The 1992 pink slip, the 1997, Alan, you got to leave. Okay, well the other two, the earlier ones were more maybe a little bit voluntary, where there was no period of unemployment or transition. They were a little bit more copacetic. But along the way, in addition to remembering about fear, because as we get into conversations with other people, fear can get in the way. Remember, false exaggerations appearing real. On your handout, on the back side of your handout, there's a bunch of words there. That says a values exercise. One of the things that I've found helpful in engaging in relationships, whatever these relationships are, my Rotary Club, my church, my businesses, my professional associations, my friends, my fraternity brothers. I mean, it can be endless out here of people and organizations. The fellowship. I mean, Todd Evans, fellowship. It's all there. It's in some place. Okay. Jay Shukla goes to my church. Okay. But as we think through those things, as we think through them, why is it that sometimes in the business world, we find that conversations come difficult? There's something strained in this conversation. And other times, we're having a conversation on virtually the exact same topic with another person, and it just unfolds in an absolutely grandiose way. Well, one of the things that I think, and this is just my thinking, so just take it for that, is I think it's a function of where the values system of the participants in the conversation lie. Okay? Where's your value system? What do you hold dear? And on that sheet, give yourself your own quiz sometime. Take it home. And there's 30 or 35 words on there. Think about circling maybe 5 or 6 or 7 that really truthfully describe who you are. And then if you're married and do it with your spouse, but do it on each other. Husband, do it on your wife. Wife, do it on your husband. Do it for your children. Have your children do it on you. Okay? And what it can do is it can reaffirm the core foundations of your being. And when you have the core foundations of your being confidently resonating in such a way, because it's how you're wired, it's natural. The conversations that go pretty easily are oftentimes because there's a strong matchup between yours and the other person. Now, I'm not going to say that it means I'm going to stay away from people who are not aligned with me. But I do recognize that when the conversation might be a little bit strained, I had one of these Wednesday. This was 2 days ago. I knew precisely why it was a little bit strained. Their value system was different from mine. And that's okay. And I'm not going to beat them over the head trying to convince them that I'm right. I'm just going to recognize that and move on. Recognize that and move on. Okay? So I'm hoping that's helpful when you're in transition, and maybe you're frustrated a little bit because the people that I'm talking with are not providing or not enlightening the way that you maybe hope to. Think about the ones that you hold true. I mean, I'm going to give you 12 words right now and see if you can know what these words tie into. A blank is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. Anybody know what that is? It's a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. June 1970. I'm still an Eagle Scout. That's coming up on 45 years. 45 years. Those words don't come lightly. And I learned those words when I was 14 years old. Okay? So if you can think about words that are embedded into who you are, and you bring that into conversation, even when you're in the midst of stuff, because we all are. If anybody claims that life is so good they have nothing going on, they're not telling the truth. Everybody has stuff. Everybody does. Okay? So if we recognize that, and if we want to be in a deep conversation with another person, and vice versa, through the sharing of story, understanding of those value structures, such that wherever we are in life, we can be part of that R factor. The R factor, the relationship factor. And relationship with him, relationship with others. Okay, I'm going to segue now, because we're going to wrap up right on time, with 4 exercises that I've learned from others that you can take home and learn. They're on your sheet, and they're not worded precisely the way that I want to, but they are there. The first one is a simple question, and this is a question that, again, use these if you're in transition. Help them with other people. When I meet with other people that are in transition very regularly, and I give this to them as their homework. First one is a question, and just thoughtfully think it through and take an hour or 2 or 3. What is it that when you do it gives you absolute energy and joy? What is it that when you do it gives you absolute energy and joy? And think about that in a professional context. Okay, if we're assisting someone that's in a professional life transition. Okay, and then have them write it down. I mean, you yourself write it down. I know what my answer is, but we want to also be in a place where we can come back to these exercises periodically, and I try to do it at least once a year, if not at least once every other year, to reaffirm, because the answers don't stay the same. They get better, because life moves forward. Okay. Second one, I call it the three most fantastic days, and here's what I want you to think about. In your professional career, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or however long it is, in your professional career, think back of all those years of when you've been in the marketplace. And I want you to think about the 3 most fantastic days of that working career. And try and put it in your mind, because we think in pictures. We think in pictures. I can close my eyes and I can see that day in August of 1971, when I was in the World Jamboree in Fujinomiya, Japan, at the base of Mount Fuji, with 5,000 scouts from all over the world. That was 44 years ago. But I can close my eyes and see it. I mean, so we think in pictures. Do the same with this. As you think about those 3 most fantastic days, close your eyes and put yourself back into those days. And then answer these questions. Who? What? Why? When? How? And I might have missed one there, but all those questions. Who's involved? Where are you? Why is it happening? What happened? How did it take place? Just try to answer all those questions with regard to those days. And how do you know this is a fantastic day? For me, the way I quantify it is when I came home from that day, I was walking on air and I was exhausted at the same time. At the same time. Physically exhausted because it was so wearing, but walking on air. You've had those days. You have. We all have. And I sense that when we're in those days, we are in alignment with our God-given gifts and our acquired skills in such a way that we brought value to somebody else's life. And when we did that, when we brought value to somebody else's life, and there might have been a paycheck, or there might have been a commission check, or there might have been something business-wise that also was worthwhile. But as you think through why I can't wait to tell my wife about what happened today on this blah, 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 blah. And I'm physically drained. And I'm walking on air. You've had them. You have. I know everybody has. So, think of 3 of them. May 1985, boom, 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 boom. Here it was. Okay, and here's October of 1994. Boom, and write them all down and answer all those questions. And if you do, then you have 3 sets of paper. Each one's on a piece of paper like this. And then, when you're all done, put them side by side. 1, 2, 3. Look at them, and then get a 4th piece of paper and start to write down the common features from those 3 days. The common features from those 3 days. What's similar of all those 3 days as I look at the who, what, where, why, when, how, and put that on the fourth piece of paper as the commonalities, and then stack them up, put the fourth on the side, put it aside. I've given you 2 exercises. I've got 3 more minutes. Okay, I see you're getting the hook here. I'm going to go quickly over the last 2 because this is wonderful homework. First one, what gives you energy and joy? Second one, 3 most fantastic days. Third one, 10 most important people. Identify right now in your life who are right now the 10 most important people in your life that are living. Write down a list. Personal, family, business, doesn't matter, but they are the 10 most important people. Call them up. Call them up and let them know that you would like to have a one-on-one with them. It might take 40, 45 minutes. But you're in the process of making some wonderful decisions. But before you make those decisions, you want their input. And your discussion with them is going to go along these lines. I've got 2 questions for you, Frank. Frank, you've known me for 25 years. And I think you know me pretty well, and we know each other pretty well. And I value your opinion. As you think about me, Alan Pratt, what are the skill sets, character traits, values, virtues of Alan Pratt that you see for which you hold me up in high regard? And then your job is to do one thing. Shut up. Won't say anything, because it's going to take a while for Frank to process that. And he will. And he'll process it on you, and then he'll start talking. And everything that he says, you write down verbatim. Verbatim. And then when he's done, and you'll know because there'll be a pause and he'll be struggling for something else. They say, thank you, Frank. One more question. If there's something about me for which you would change, what would it be? Maybe, or 2 things. Things about me that if you could, you would change. What would those be? And then don't say anything. And listen to him. Write it down. And if he's truthful, it's a long-term relaxed wrestling machine. He'll be truthful with you. You've done that once, now do it 9 more times with the other 9 most important people. I've done this several times. First time was 1995. And when you're all through, it will take several weeks. It might take a month. It might take 2 months. What about if that most important people is on the East Coast? Well, do you Skype? Do you telephone? If you can face-to-face, please face-to-face. If they're too far away because of geography, then use technology if you have to. When you're all done, you're going to have 10 sheets, aren't you? 10 sheets. On the left-hand side is the answer to the first question. On the right-hand side, the answer to the second question. Put them in a big circle. Get a big table like this and put them in a big circle. Then put a piece of paper in the middle. Start looking around. What do I see that are common features on the first question? What do I see that are common answers on the second question? Put them on the piece of paper in your compilation. That's sheet number 11. Stack them all up. Put it aside. You've done 3. Last one is on your worksheet. It's a simple question in 4 areas there at the bottom of your worksheet. If we were meeting here 5 years from today, it's March 6, 2020. Whew. March 6, 2020. And we were looking back to today. That's 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago when that guy from Bellevue showed up at that marketplace connection meeting in 2015. What has to happen in your life for you to say that you feel fulfilled and satisfied with your progress in those 5 areas listed on the page? Relationships, health, spiritual development, intellectual growth, and financial resources. And thoughtfully think through that. That one will take you hours and hours, but thoughtfully think it through. When you're all through, you have 4 assignments and they're all done. What is it when you do it? Gives you absolute energy and joy. 3 most important days, 10 most important people, and the last one, which I call the discovery process, which is the 5-year question into your future. Put them all together, And as you pursue something when you're in a low spot because it's a transition and maybe you're collecting an unemployment check like I was in 1992, or maybe you're looking at a business decision, and my good friend, my good brother Jay over here, as we go into transitions in life, sometimes it's business marriages, sometimes it's business divorces, sometimes it's business mergers, and some business closures, okay? Those are all transitions. And if we're going to some of those things right now, how are we going to make those decisions as we move forward? And for me, these have been 4 areas that I've tried to use and shared with others to help them through those areas, because that's what we're here to do. So I'm done. I went over a few minutes, but I want to say